And you know yourself, a lot of our methodology is about putting the onus on the students. All right, I know that feeling, but I could honestly say the same with my teens and my adults, could say the same thing, that they've spent the class playing different games. On evermore into the 21st century is, could you walk in and do this and teach the same things, have the same result, the same aim and objective achieved at the end if you just had a piece of chalk and a blackboard? I had to change my habits and just put it in almost as a habit. And I realized that's what I've been telling my students. Why am I not doing it? Well, first of all, with speaking with confidence, and me and you are going to play this game, or attempt to. It goes back to what we were saying before about turn taking, and I'll give them my review. I always do examples as well. That's another thing as well. As a teacher, I do think you should do an example. Recording is awesome and essential. Watch a film that you've seen 100 times because you already know the story. All right, and another simple activity, again, I don't know how well you can see this, is just basically, I call it upgrade. If you don't like the way you sound, do something about it.
Hey there, English teachers, and welcome to another very special episode of the More Than English podcast. I'm your host, Jesse, and I want to help you in the classroom. One of the best ways that I like to do that is to invite the top teachers, teacher trainers, examiners, and general specialists in their field to give you lesson ideas, teaching philosophy, strategy, and just general tips to help you have better lessons, to help your students get more out of it, and ultimately to help you enjoy your job more, enjoy your time as being an EFL teacher or an ESL teacher, to help you get the most out of it yourself. And just a reminder, if you are listening to this on YouTube, if you're seeing me on YouTube, then we also have audio versions of the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google Play, the Google Store, Android, pretty much anywhere where you find podcasts. You can also go to sweetacademy.com, go click to More Than English Podcast and see the notes and the videos there. If you are watching us over there, then hop over to the YouTube channel at EFL Teaching Hub or youtube.com/sweetacademy and see the video version. Both versions have a little different style, a little different feel. I do a little different intro on the audio only version. And of course you get show notes and the notes on the screen on this version. So I look forward to seeing you and hearing you. And just as a personal favor to me, for one, wherever you're listening to this or watching it, can you give it a thumbs up and a rating? That will really help. And another thing that will really help, if you are enjoying these, if you're getting a lot of ideas, then all I'm asking you to do is just share this with a friend or two, or a coworker, even better than a friend, a coworker, a teacher's meeting. Share it with a couple people. Maybe they will share it with a couple people, and we will get the ball rolling. Because as you see down at the bottom, my numbers aren't very impressive yet. But if it's helping you and you think that my numbers should be higher, if you think I should be getting more views, then help that train roll along. Because quite frankly, I'm a really good teacher, but I suck at promotion and marketing. Apparently, obviously. So if you can help me out in that area and pass it along, share it along with a coworker or two, I will be greatly appreciative. And let me know on social media that you did it, and I'll give you a thank you and a follow because you're awesome. Okay, so on to today's episode. I know I say this is a very special episode every week, because I really truly believe they are. But today it's a brand new thing anyway for this season. And we have a part 2 of an interview that started last week. As you saw in the show opener, you saw some clips from last week, my conversation with Terry Lodge. Remember Terry Lodge, a professional teacher, teacher trainer, and Cambridge examiner. He shared a ton of information on Cambridge strategy, how we can help our students be less nervous going into speaking exams, how we can help them be more prepared going into writing and listening exams. And he just shared some great strategy that I've already used in my classes, like the conversation tennis. I used that in a teens class and in a professional adults class, several. And make the sense. I guess he called it upgrade. Remember that? The upgrade game. I did that. It's perfect. These were great strategies. If you haven't seen it, then you can check out clips of the show on our YouTube channel and just see the clips, and you'll be able to just watch the clip if you need a refresher before your lesson or a lesson idea. But anyway, enough about that. Today we have part 2 of my interview with Terry. And in this interview, he gives his top 5 tips for teaching for the Cambridge exam, right? He gives 5 top tips for reading, speaking, listening, and writing exams, and use of English, the grammar. That's such a nightmare for students to prepare for this use of English exam. So if you're preparing your students for the Cambridge exam, if you're here in Europe, you're probably doing that. Take notes for today's episode and last week's episodes. Today is part 2. He shared so much information, I had to cut it up into 2 parts so the podcast doesn't go on forever. So here we go. Let's get into part 2 with Terry Lodge.
So I think now, okay, so I've got some general tips, I think, for teachers and students in general. But it's more for teachers, I would say. This is more really specifically for teachers. So my first tip is keep calm. I know this has been heavily overused, this meme. It's so overused. Keep calm and prioritize. What do I mean by that? Well, in the exam, I think it's worth recognizing that all parts are not created equal. Now, in the B1, your reading and writing, which actually has just changed. It's changing, isn't it, for this year? Now, the reading and writing are now becoming separate papers. But if we look at the first exam here, for example, this green section here, this is the reading and use of English. Now, this is worth 70 points. Okay, now we need 160 points to get a pass in the first certificate. Now, if we look at the reading and use of English, as I said, it's 70 points, which is the same as the listening and the writing combined. And I think that that's something that people don't necessarily think about when they go into class. Well, as teachers, when I first started teaching exams, I went in and I was teaching and putting emphasis on everything. I thought, well, everything needs to be equally, attention needs to be paid equally to all parts. And that just simply, I would say, is not true. And I think when it comes to students having difficulties with certain parts, when it comes to mock papers, for example, when they do the mock exams at CNA, at our school, I always get them to look at those areas, and I show them this, and I tell them, we've got to get things in perspective. If you're doing really badly on reading use of English and your writing is okay, I would really focus on the reading use of English, because there are many more points to be had there as opposed to the writing. Let's say if you considered your writing to be as poor as your reading use of English, it's still better to do the reading use of English, because again, there are many more points to be had. When we move up to higher levels, there's an even greater disparity. If you look at the speaking and the reading use of English, I mean, we're looking here at nearly 160 points just for the speaking and the reading use of English. So technically speaking, the listening and the writing, you would only need to score another 40 points to sail through the C1 exam. So prioritizing what the students need to be spending more time on is helpful to them, and it's beneficial to you. I've found over the years that I've wasted time going over things that they didn't really need. And I think doing mock exams is super, super important. If you're teaching Cambridge classes, I feel that you should be, in December, regardless of whether your school does it or not, you really should do a mock exam that first term, at the end of the first term. And I always tell them this exam paper is for analytical purposes. This is for you to see what we need to focus on. I go through, I show them these statistics they can see. We look at, I have other slides, PowerPoints, where we look at each section and how many points it's worth. because then that helps students prioritize their time on any given task. And I will say to them, look, this reading use of English part 4 here, this is actually worth 2 points each question. So it's worth spending a bit more time on that. You might think that part 2, is the same, but actually it's not, because it's worth a few points less. So you shouldn't really be spending as much time on that. So the students begin to prioritize. But that does take a bit of work, because as a teacher, you've got to help the students find and highlight the areas that they need to work on. But you also need to guide them on an individual basis, and you need to be aware of points, how many parts, which parts are worth how much, and you need to weigh that up against time. So yes, it is a little bit, it's taken me, a while to get to this stage, let's say, but Cambridge have so many resources. It's all there online. It's, the handbook for whatever level you are teaching, you download the Cambridge handbook for that level. And you take the time to go through it, look at the points, look at the way that it's divided up, look at the weighting, and delegate, prioritize what is actually the most important here, because you can't just aim to make everything.
The blue is writing, and
that's speaking.
The blue
is just speaking. Yeah, and that is reading use of English for C1. Yeah, and this is writing. That's listening. So you see, when you look at it from a point perspective, all parts are not created equal.
No.
So
they should definitely take priority in the time we devote in teaching them.
Yeah. And I think also the listening for the B2 and C1, this can be a lovely kind of, again, it can help take that pressure off psychologically, because they look at it and think, well, actually, I want you to do well in the listening, but don't worry, because the listening is always the part, I would say. I don't know whether you would agree, but I think most teachers would say that the listening is the part that's A, the most difficult to plan for, and B, the part that students probably hate the most, or have the most difficulty with, or approach with the most negative kind of attitude, I would say. So,
and defeatist attitude.
So yes, that's it. I think that was the better way of expressing it, actually. Yeah. To show them that it's like, hey, you know what? It's not the be all and end all, the listening. I want
actually
you to do
the
well
smallest.
in the listening. Yeah. It is. That's 30 points and the writing 40 there. Yeah. So it just goes to show you.
That's really valuable information.
Prioritizing. I actually put this on my reports as well. Well, I did. Now we've got a new system. I don't know. But I put this on my reports last year, and I sent this to parents. And I had a breakdown on the mock exams of what each student scored in what area. So it's easy for the students to see as well. They can look and say, oh, I can pick up more points there. And when to, if they're getting 25 in listening, but 40 in reading use of English, I'm telling them, reading use of English is where you need to be improving still, because there's only another 5 points to be gained in the listening. So again, prioritize.
Awesome.
What have we got?
Awesome.
Next tip is reduce. This is reduce your workload as a teacher. How? By reusing and recycling. I know it might seem academic to say that. It's a given, but it will be surprising how often people don't really recycle. And I'm talking about between levels. I teach B1 to, this year I've got B1 to C2. I'm able to use very similar activities. You just adapt them. If I give you an example, my write a review, I've adapted that for B1, B2 and C1. So there are 3 versions of my review. How did I do it? By upgrading my language. If I go back to the cat sat on the map, I've taken words out. In the case of B1, I've rephrased a few things, changed the vocabulary, but essentially it's been far less work than me creating an original work for three different classes. Once you have activities that you are happy with and that work really well with your class, with one class, you should be adapting them for other classes. Don't just think, oh, well, I can use that for B1 all the time. Use it for B2, use it for C1, C2, use it for all your levels. Recycling isn't cheating. It makes sense. We can't keep every week coming up with these fresh, crazy new ideas as much as we'd like to. I have a lovely... Yeah, go on.
It's something that we touched on with Harry the other week too. Right. There's no need to reinvent the wheel. Use and adapt. You adapt like another person's wheel for whatever you need at the time. But You don't have to recreate everything. That's
No,
why there are
absolutely
teacher
not.
resources, and we do have teacher meetings and things like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got so many activities now that today when I'm planning, I think, okay, I'm going to do that for that, that for that, that for that, that for that. It's great. It's great. Yes, we use recycle. I just think it bears mentioning again, really, because with exam tasks particularly, so the next is context matters. Now, I've mentioned this a few times today about how you frame an activity, because when we look at a Cambridge exam, we're seeing black and white piece of paper with lots of text on about a subject maybe I don't like, and we're turned off instantly by it. It's not exciting for us. It's not fun. But like I say, context matters. So this is a multiple choice, for example, a multiple choice. Now, the first thing I did with my students, this is a B2 part 1. So I said to them, this is the very first thing you're going to see when you open the exam paper. I said, and we're going to practice it. And how did we practice it? Well, teacher's favourite, Kahoot. So Kahoot. Everybody knows Kahoot. We love Kahoot. Kahoot, we love it.
What a lifesaver.
Absolutely. And kids, teachers, they love it. They absolutely adore the game. And I'm telling you, this has been really, really good. I don't overuse it, but it does get used a fair amount. I would say a couple of times a month in each class because it works. This is the same activity as essentially as the example I just showed you as this. It's exactly the same. It's a question, essentially, with 4 possible answers. And in fact, I've taken real B2 readings, I've broken them up, and then I've basically transported them into a Kahoot. So my students have been doing that this week, and they'll play it. They're all very exciting.
Oh, they create it?
No, I created it. I did it. But I have had the students create it.
You could have the students create one. Choose one from a practice book or a resource, and then they create it.
It's great for word formation, where you have to, manipulate the word prefixes and suffixes, get the students to create that. I've done that before.
Perfect.
But yes, so Kahoot is great. I also use this because a lot of people, I don't know if a lot of people have ever tried to use it, but there is the voting, the survey as well. There's the survey option. So when you're creating, it's more of a not who's right or wrong. It's like a voting, like a vote where everybody votes. And the idea is I get them talking together to try and agree on an answer. And then we have to go with them. The idea is as a class, the majority have to choose the correct answer.
I haven't done the survey one. I'll have to check that out.
It gives it a new twist, mixes it up a little bit,
Nice.
So another example of context is, so there's the 2 side by side. Another example of context is this here. I'm sure you've seen this before, the classic making a decision. So really, students look at this, and again, this is the taking turns thing where they sit. Let's make it real, very simple. Bring it to them with students, make it about them, ask them about decisions that they've had to make. And what you were saying before about getting the students to create the content is every single activity I do, I try and find something in real life, where they would have to use that skill, because essentially we're teaching them English because they want to be able to use that English to live their lives. So I'm sure that we can find a context where they will have to use that language. So in the instance of this, buying a gift, I can create a scenario, but I find the best things are, is there someone whose birthday is coming up? Is there a holiday that you're planning? And help them actually make real life decisions. Give them real context, and see how they get on. And I find that there's a lot more passion involved then. I sometimes record them. I will ask them, say, can I record you just because I want you to see? It's just for you to see. And I'll play it back to them. I say, you see that? You see the difference? You were really invested in it. Just, and in the real exam, apply that. And it helps them make that link. If you do it a few times, a bit like this, my objective is that when they go to the exam or they sit down and try a task like this, they think of it in a slightly different way. They approach it in a different way. They're not going to sit there and start seeing red, blue, green, and yellow, choosing, it on their exam paper, but at least they're going to have a more positive memory of this kind of cognitive thinking. Yeah.
And if you get them to do that enough, like that
Exactly.
muscle memory, they might in their minds start
Exactly.
seeing the red, green, yellow, blue in
Yeah,
their
I'd rather
minds.
I'd rather they didn't hallucinate in the exams, but you know, but yeah, I know what yeah, but essentially that's the whole idea, is that it's creating those links, and I really just want, when my students come into the class, to see everything in the most positive light possible. Really.
Yeah, going back to real life, sorry.
Yeah,
Like I've had this with students. They've talked to me about real life things. You know, I like to get a little
yeah,
natural conversation before we practice, like exam, and like we talk about whatever's going on in their lives, like they're coaching football or they've seen a movie or whatever, and they're very personable, and
yeah,
their language is isn't without its errors, but it's very personable. And I'm like, okay, now I'm going to show you a photograph of two people doing this,
yeah.
that exam part two. And so I'd like you to compare yes, in the first photograph, and it just changes and they're
Yes,
robotic.
yes, it absolutely does. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like,
It's just changed.
wait, stop that. And I stop them right in the middle. I'm like, what is this? Like, you were so relaxed before. Now you're just so rigid and stiff. And like, I've made mention of that. Like, I've had to stop them.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking a little bit about this at the very end. Just a few little tips from my experience as a speaking examiner, and a couple of things maybe some information to pass on to the students when it comes to that. But that's part of it, actually. Yeah.
By the way, I
Uh,
wasn't telling you stop.
oh, thanks. So this is it. I'm still learning, Michelangelo. Funnily enough, how about that? How
It all
ironic is
comes
that?
full circle, eh?
It certainly does. Yes, yes. So it's my favorite aspect of the job. Absolutely. Absolutely. My favorite thing about this job is I cannot dominate it. I am always continually learning. Always. The day I stop learning is the day I will have had enough of this, and I will find it boring. And it's in past lives with other jobs I did when I was younger, that certainly was the case. I kept feeling that I'd gone as far as I could go with this. And I never imagined I would be a teacher, but it clicked, it fell into place. I thought, this is something that keeps me stimulated. And it plays into the idea, we don't know everything. It's okay. This is basically what we were talking about earlier, that it's okay not to know something. That's great. That's good. Let's learn together. Like you say, let's have a look now online together. Keep reading, keep looking, and know that you do not know all the answers. I've been teaching exam English for over 10 years. I still now have to learn about the new updates to the B1 exam.
Yeah,
Another year, another update, because they're always updating them. So
sure.
even information that I picked up a long time ago, which is what was steadfast and watertight at the time, doesn't hold water anymore, because I need to now look at it differently. I need to now relearn about that particular exam. I'm having to do that. I'm still learning this year. I'm learning about the B1, which was my that exam I could do with my eyes, because I could write an exam. I've done so many of them. So keep learning.
Absolutely. And it's funny you say that, because that's my tagline as I leave all of my videos. I say, keep teaching and keep learning. Thanks for watching. And,
yeah, absolutely. That is the number one thing.
Number one. And I've actually found that, like, it's actually encouraging to students when they help you learn something, right? It's not that they think, oh, why am I paying this teacher something? He doesn't even know. It's not like that at all. They actually, it feels good, right? When we help somebody learn, that's why we're in this job, right? When we help somebody as people, when we help somebody, that feels good. Same with our students, I've found.
Yeah, and they sometimes ask them amazing questions. That's one of the parts. That can be, I must say, actually, for a new teacher, that can be quite horrifying.
Right, and that's why we're mentioning this.
Yeah, but it is something that I absolutely love now, because quite often it's something that you would never have learned that in any training. It's something quite obscure, but it's an observation that can only come from their perspective of our language. And I'll be like, I've never actually thought about that. That's really interesting. And I genuinely find it interesting. And I'll tell them point blank, I don't really know. I need to think about that. But that's a very interesting, and I take it as a challenge, to be quite honest. And I'll often try to figure it out, in the moment. And sometimes I can. And then, like you say, I've just learned something. We've learned something together. And I would say, actually, yeah. So if you think about it, and so half the time I'm able to give them an explanation. I'm able to figure it out, work it out. even though I've never consciously thought of it before, or heard of it or learnt about it anywhere. So yeah, I think that, like you say, yeah, keep learning, but you can learn from the students, not just these fabulous Cambridge books, which I don't work for them in that respect. But I would say the Cambridge website, resources for teachers, you go there, you download the handbooks, you download sample exams. They have great lesson plans on each part of the exam. That's how I learn. By reading these books, by doing the training with my class, I learn as my students were learning. And I remember, I think it was Mike actually at Click who said to me that you will always be learning while your students are learning. So I think that it's like you never stop learning. You are learning as they are learning. So don't worry about it. I said, Claire also mentioned to me, because as an English person, we don't study grammar at school. That's not something that's taught in a typical English high school.
No,
so oh really? I thought Americans learned grammar. Well, you have a I feel like you guys have a better grasp of it.
Really? I thought that about you guys.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, no. I mean, and I was kind of freaking out about grammar, when I was going in to do the CELTA, and I basically
it can be very intimidating in front of adult students who are asking you difficult questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I plan. You know what it's like when you're fresh, and I know you new teachers, you'll be sort of planning, to the last, sort of down to the last fine detail. And really, I used to write down the full structures in my book and really examples. Really, it was just there. I spent so much time preparing it. But that's fine. That I think you do, it's not unreasonable to do that. I wouldn't say to people, don't do that. I think for new teachers, absolutely do that. Good. You've got passion, you care, you want to learn. That means you're in the right job. If you want to invest that amount of time, you go for it. But know that you won't always have to do that. You'll do it for a year or two, and it will. The time is greatly reduced once you've got it all in there. But it does come. And like I say, when I started this profession, I couldn't have told you what the present perfect is. I couldn't have told you 12 years ago what's the present perfect.
I actually have a funny story. That earlier on in my career, someone in a job interview asked me that as an example. Like, some of our students, they have trouble with present perfect, and I didn't know what the present perfect was.
Right.
And I was like, well, it's like the present tense, but
But it's
terrible answer, but it's done perfectly. And needless to say, I didn't get the job. But
yeah, wow. But to be fair, also, because in America, you don't use it really. You don't have it explicitly in the same way we do. That's the worst thing to ask an American, really, when it comes to grammar, is about that.
Yeah, we don't use it as much as you guys do, actually, which is nice to know for students too. Like, you use language differently.
I think, another question that often comes up is about American English versus UK English. I've spoken to the source at Cambridge and asked them about that, because I heard conflicting ideas on that. The basic, the breakdown is this: if you're going to use English words, English vocabulary, that's fine. If you want to use the American counterparts, that's fine. You can even mix them to a certain extent. American spelling. Or American, you could say faucet if you wanted, and that would be perfectly fine instead of tap. However, you must be consistent. You cannot say faucet in one sentence and then say tap. He turned on the faucet in one sentence, and then the next sentence say he turned off the tap. You shouldn't do that. You've got to keep it within the realms of the same language. My advice is really try to just use one or the other if possible. But, most of the programs that our students watch are American, apart from Downton Abbey. I think that's like the only thing I can think of that my students watch that is quintessentially English. So, I don't discourage
Peaky Blinders.
Oh, Peaky, sorry, yeah, that's true. Peaky Blinders, that's a massive hit as well. But again, the language used in these types of series isn't your everyday English, typically. It's very stylized, in each case. So yes, keep learning, basically. Cambridge website, Cambridge trainers, use them as your own Bibles. I have up here on my shelf, I'll just get my Cambridge trainer here. I got my B1 trainer there, which is now out of date. I got my
very valuable tools.
It's my first certificate, first for schools. Those books are always close by because they're brilliant. They're really good. They're really well structured. they make sense. And I also think if you're doing one-to-ones, if you've got your own private classes, I highly suggest using these. I think they're
full of
really
examples, full of
examples.
fixed expressions that are useful for writings.
Absolutely. Just take those fixed expressions out of the book and personalize them. Before I introduce anything from the book, really, I personalize it. I take the language always out of the book, personalize it, then show them the book. Which is what we're supposed to do anyway. But again, it's the same with exams. Just because it's an exam doesn't mean we shouldn't be applying all of that CELTA training that we've had, all of the same ideas of personalizing things, taking things out of the book. I think, is that the end of that? Yes, so that's the end of my little bit there. But what I wanted to basically was just give you a few ideas from a speaking examiner's point of view, if you have any questions about that. Things, do's and don'ts, really, I would say. So first of all, do be yourself. I said it earlier, and you mentioned about how sometimes the students, you'll be talking with them about something personal, then when it comes to the task, they suddenly clam up. Because don't tell us what you think we want to hear. It doesn't work. It does not work. Some of the best answers I've ever heard to "Do you like English?" or "What do you like about studying English?" It's a standard question that we ask in part one of pretty much all of the exams. And the best answers I've heard, really, some of them have been, "Oh no, I don't like studying English. I hate it. I'm sorry, but I really don't like it. I have to do it because I need it for my degree."
Perfect.
Because there's emotion in there. There's emotion in there. They want to express it. You hear the intonation in their voice and everything. It's all there. The personality shines through, and it's a genuine answer because it comes from, it's maybe a little bit hippie or whatever, but it comes from the heart. It comes from the heart,
And to add in a little language training to add into that answer, like encourage your students to do that, and add what I call a fluency builder, which is like, to be honest. Right? Just add that right in the beginning.
Always.
To be honest, no, I don't, because it's something that I have to do. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, no. You speak from the heart. Imagine that you are in that situation. You're play acting. Be Spanish. I tell them your biggest asset in the speaking, for example, is be Spanish. So do be yourself. Don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Say what you're actually thinking. Yeah. Do always say why. Always say why in your writing and your speaking. Well, depending on the writing, obviously. If you're writing an essay, for example, the amount of essays I read where people aren't backing up their points or giving any justifications, and it goes a long way. It also gives you something to write, because a lot of people, they struggle to, they're worried about that word count. And it's the same with speaking. I don't know what to say. Whatever you've said, say why. Always say why. And in the speaking exams, that's what we want to know.
If you're finished with the picture description, right? If you finished, and the teacher hasn't said thank you yet, or the invigilator hasn't said thank you yet, ask yourself why.
Ask yourself why. Exactly. Ask yourself why at this point. Yeah. Why haven't they? Yeah. But no, I mean, talk about your own feelings, basically, on the pictures that you're seeing. If you're comparing, in my opinion, this is this and this. But again, why? Why? If you run out of things to say, talk about your own opinions. But always, the power of why. My students, I'll go like this. Do this.
Nice.
The power of why. And say, what's that for? And after a month or two, they know. Like this, that's my little cue. If they're not, because I'm not going to tell them, I'm not doing this. I just go like that. Yeah. They know what it means. Why?
Nice. Yeah, it's funny. I have a past episode from season 1, actually, and it's titled "The Best Question," and why is the best question.
Oh, absolutely is the best question. It gives you so much ammunition, because students, especially the ones when you're talking for a minute on your own, that could be, pretty intimidating to do. So why? But also it applies to collaborative tasks. When you're talking to your partner, tell them what your idea is. I think this present would be a very nice one for her. Why? Is it a nice one for her?
You could actually say this, if your students are nervous. I teach my students tricks, like if they're nervous, to put the pressure, like not put the pressure on the other person, like as to be a jerk, but just kind of like to relieve yourself. For example, when starting the task, ask them, would you like to go first or shall I?
I was going to say that.
Yeah?
I was going to say that. That's a great way. Yeah, that's a great way to start the test because it's a lovely introduction. It's correct. You're also offering, and I like the fact you said, or shall I? I do like that little touch there. I often have told my students, just ask them, do you want to start or do you wish to start?
Yeah.
But yeah, or I think that's good. Yeah, I think that's nice because then you're not throwing them under the bus per se. You're giving them a lifeline if they really don't want to.
Yeah,
I think that's a great idea. Absolutely.
Yeah.
This leads me on to my next do, which is do help your partner. You are a partnership. You are not in competition with each other because in the class you're working together quite often, and you're so you become friends and it's all very nice. And I always obviously change pairs so they're working with someone different. But come the day of the exam, in many cases you're going to be with somebody you've never met before. When you're inside that room, make sure that you are helping each other. It's not about can I talk the most? Let me get in as much as I can so I can impress them, because believe me, you will not do well if you do that. The onus on those collaborative tasks is precisely that. Collaborate. Show us your ability to work together with somebody else or two other people, if there's three of you, to solve a problem or to come to some kind of conclusion. That's what we're testing. We're testing your ability to communicate information and share ideas with a partner. So you going off on a 30-second rant or 1 minute rant is not going to, and then at the end turning and saying, what do you think? It's not going to work. That's not what we want. That's not at all what we want. So yeah, my next tip is make sure you are there for your partner. If they stumble on a word, if they're trying to think of something, we'll go back to the earlier example when you said Leonardo da Vinci. Sorry to bring that up again, but you were going on about Leonardo da Vinci, and I went, no, I think it's Michelangelo. That's exactly it. That's because that's how we speak in real life. You see, that was a real life example. And I've said to them, that's what you should be doing. If you were sat with your friends, that's how you would speak. If they made a mistake or if they were struggling for a word, we struggle for words in our own language when we're trying to recall something. So why would that not happen when in an exam situation? It would be even more likely to happen, right? Help your partner. You'll be praised for it.
Absolutely. And for the partner who, if you encourage your students, kind of like you said, we make these mistakes in our own language. And my mistake earlier with Leonardo da Vinci, that happens,
exactly.
and remind
well, I actually
yourself,
agreed with you. I agreed with you initially. So,
and then you had to think, wait, and then
you
corrected me. And I said, oh yeah, I was wrong. That's the correct answer. Let's move on. Same thing as in an exam.
And we're starting to move into what's classed as conversation repair at this point, which is, which is something that examiners will pick up on. That was very good. They've worked there. They've circumnavigated that problem there. My next tip is if you can't think of a word and your partner's not helping or not able to help, try to describe the word. Or, for example, if I say it's a thing, we put water, we can carry water in it to clean the floor. What's this word? You put the water inside with the bleach and then you clean the floor. But I don't know. We've got the mop and what's this thing? This container? Bucket. Yeah. So yeah, we can. But if your partner. Cube, yeah, they might say cube. Yes, true in that example. But they'll basically, if you cannot, still your partner doesn't get the word, you can't think of the word. Try to describe it, but then just move on.
Moving on.
Don't worry about it. Yeah, just say, you know what, moving on. Yeah, forget that. Scratch that. There's little expressions like, you know what, forget that. I've taught my students that. You know what, forget that. That's a little expression to teach them because that happens. And there's nothing wrong with that. Move on to the next thing. That's a little small mistake, as long as you don't let it go on and on and on, which would then be classed as hesitation, which is which is a thing that permeates throughout the speaking exam. We want to avoid that. Yeah. So yes. Sorry. Yeah.
No. I was just going to piggyback on that. It's not necessarily the mistakes; it's how you handle them.
Absolutely.
I've told my students that.
Absolutely. Yes.
They're praised for that. From an examiner standpoint, they would be praised for that.
Absolutely,
assume.
yeah, because like I say, it's moving into conversational repair. Did you understand? Can I help you with that? Do you get me? Do you follow me? Or I'm not sure. It's great. It's really good. Like I say, we're not. This is again, it gets back to that same idea. We're testing their ability to work together. So it really shows that the other person is listening if they are jumping in, mid conversation to help them. So again, it shows that they're completing the task. They are collaborating, which again is what that task is all about. Talking about, again, showing interest or showing that you're listening. If people watching this video will see that while me and you are talking to each other, you're not sitting there stone-faced, not moving. Like now, see, you start to nod, you're responding. Non-verbal responses are key as well. Really are to convincing an examiner that you look like you're in some kind of conversation. Because if you're really engaged in conversation, as humans, we will nod or shake our heads. And again, some of the more memorable collaborative tasks that I've come across have been students who have really fiercely disagreed. I had one candidate who actually, they were arguing about what was the most important thing for the beach. Was it sun cream or the umbrella? And the woman, she was a slightly older woman, but she got quite aggressive. But I loved her passion. She said, no, I need sun cream because I burn. The umbrella is okay, but only when we're laying down. When I go to the sea, what's happened? I'm going to burn. You're okay, but I'm not okay. And I just thought it was brilliant. This was B1 as well. I was really, really quite impressed. And they did quite well, actually. I kind of went, just with my hands like that. It's just, it's okay. And I did say to her, afterwards, like, wow, you do know that wasn't real, yes? yeah. But I like to imagine that, and
that's really great.
That is great. Yeah. Like I say, it's like put yourself in that position, speak from your heart. It worked really well. But she was shaking her head when the woman was speaking. She was shaking her head. No. And she was waiting for her moment to cut in.
Very passionate.
Which leads me into my next thing. Conversations are not. What do you think? Yes. Oh, yes. I totally agree with you. I think that is a wonderful idea. Do you? Do you really? You totally agree? You don't sound like someone, you cannot be using that adverb in such a flat way. If you totally agree, I mean, I totally agree. Oh yeah, that's a wonderful idea. If you really felt that way, that's how you would be expressing it. I don't believe you. No, you're a liar. Yeah. And I say it to the students, and I often do this exact impression. I'll say, I totally agree with you. I think that's a wonderful. And they laugh. They always laugh. Yeah. And I ask, why was that funny? And they answer the question. I don't need to tell them.
Exactly.
And again, it all comes back to being authentic, being your authentic self, and really putting that out there.
And like that, be a mirror to them. Like how do they sound to you? Show them
how I perceive it. Yeah. And I think I would say probably the best piece of advice I could give to teachers and to students alike is just remember that the examiners are human beings. They are all teachers, and we are all in this job because we care, because we love what we do, and we love working with people, and we want to see them do well. And I think that that's something that is lost very often with students, especially those. I mean, for me, my students, it's a little bit easier because they know I'm an examiner. For them, they love the inside scoop, as it were, on the process, and they see the human side of the examiner. But unfortunately, most students don't have access to an examiner, so all they see is the guy sat there in the shirt and tie with someone else behind, feverishly writing things down on bits of paper, and so it's a horrible situation. Even though I've got my Cambridge face, as I call it. I've got my Cambridge face. We've all got our Cambridge faces and our Cambridge voices. Good morning. My name is Terry Lodge, and this is my colleague. It's all very. I try to sound like the recordings and stuff, but it's humanize it. Show your students this video. I'm an examiner. I'm human. I'm not some sort of crazy person. only at the weekends, maybe on Saturdays. But no, it's really, they need to see that they need to understand that we really want them to pass rather than we are there judging them, because that's the perception that students go in with. And I'm telling you, I see students really break down. And even now when I think about it, I'm quite an emotional person. I kind of, I take on emotions a little bit, and it's very upsetting. It's very upsetting to see. And I could get in trouble for saying this, but a couple of times, and it's happened when I've worked with different partners, different examiners, but we've broken protocol a little bit and literally just put a stop on it's like, okay, we're going to stop for a second, because I've seen people in some real states.
I bet you've seen some stuff.
I've seen people have full-blown panic attacks. People have thrown up. I mean, people are just crying uncontrollably and shaking. There was a young lady, and it breaks your heart to see it, because it really shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way. Mm-hmm. And I will kind of step out of my Cambridge persona, and I have to. As a human being, I have to, and I will just say to them, look, we're going to stop for a second. Are you okay? Okay, I'm going to give you a minute just to get yourself together. Speak with your partner there, okay? It's okay. Listen, we all want you to do well, okay? We're not here to judge you. We want you to do well. We really want you to pass. When somebody leaves the room, when exam candidates leave the room and they've had a really bad experience, or it's been really horrible for them, we feel it. We feel bad for them. Believe me, we don't want that feeling for us. We certainly don't want that feeling for them. But, we have a certain protocol. We've got our script. We stick to it. We give, we try to smile and be nice, but we have to keep, there is a distance there, because everybody has to have the same test. It has to be done the same way. I mean, it's got to be fair.
Yeah.
So, and not every, I have to say, I can't speak for every examiner when I say that they would stop and they would, I think pretty much all would, but to the degree of which they might do that, other examiners may say, I think you're going to have to maybe leave the exam, because that is kind of protocol.
Sure.
So please go in, let your students know that we are human beings, and we want them to pass. We really want them to pass. When a student comes in and they're really doing well, and it's so nice. It's such a nice feeling. It's really, really nice when they do well and they go out and you're really happy, and it's like for them. So I think that's probably the most important thing. Humanize everything. Humanize
everything. That's beautiful.
Humanize the exam. Humanize the parts with games. Humanize us, the examiners. Make us humans. Let them see behind this facade, which it is. It's a facade. Shirt and tie. It's all very formal. I like to go out on a Friday and have canyons and a laugh, just like they do. With the adults or the teens with their body on this. I don't know, but yeah, so I think that's super, super, super important. And it's also appealing as a teacher to the learning process. It's been touched upon a few times. My other top tip that isn't necessarily to do with exams per se, but I do think it helps in general, is we've all studied. We've all gone through it as adults. If we've done the CELTA, I'm going through it doing the Delta. And I'm always reminding my students, it's tough, isn't it? It's really hard. And when they see me, an examiner, saying this, it reassures them again. And I think, the running theme through a lot of the things I've said today is kind of showing them the reality behind a lot of things, and showing them that a lot of things are it's just a facade. It looks a certain way, but it depends on how you psychologically, mentally want to dress it up.
Yeah. And a lot of that depends on, again, the teacher's looking. How are you going to present exam prep? And I think this is so valuable. This information is so valuable for teachers to present, because sometimes, if we're not familiar with it, we can see it as the same way. It's something that it's a mechanical thing that we have to prepare the students for to get this title, this B1
exactly.
or C2. But at the end of the day, examiners are human. As teachers, we're human. A lot of times the students may not see us as humans. We live at the school or whatever they think. Humanize everything. I love that, what you said. Humanize
my
everything.
students, they know so much about me. I tell them so much about myself. I love to share my life with my students, and I have a really good time in class because of it. Because I know, we're teachers, but I genuinely, I go out at Christmas with my adult students, with the teens. I think I don't know how long this is going on for. Actually, sorry if it's going on and on.
It'll end up being two. We will have had this in 2 episodes, by the way.
Oh, okay. Geez.
Yeah. But no, that's great.
I did say I ramble on, didn't I? But also teenagers. I think something else to bear in mind is that teenagers, I mean, especially here in Spain, they have a tough time. They really do, man. They've got to do so much. The expectations from those guys are really tough. And I think one of the ways to get through to teens as well is to actually understand what they're going through. And my teens this week, they already know. They're creating a calendar for me, so I know when the weeks that they're going to have exams, because they have a lot, as you know, they do a lot of exams in high school here in bachillerato. They do a lot.
It's like all exams.
Yeah. They've even told me, actually, and I'm not criticizing the Spanish education system per se, but the students have told me, and these come from their mouths, we would much rather learn more than keep being tested on stuff that we're told to memorize.
Yeah.
So it's, they actually want to learn rather than just memorize and regurgitate, which is what they feel they're doing. So they've got that stress. Obviously parents are worried in recent times with financial crisis in the world, being in a blind panic over not that much. In reality, when it comes to financial things are blown out of proportion, and parents, as a parent yourself, you worry about your kid's future. So they've got that added pressure as well on top of them. Then they've got to come to English, and now they've got to worry about getting this qualification in order to get a degree in a course that they don't even know what they want to do yet. In the case of the teens, a lot of the teens, so they're still trying to figure that out. So, and I think all of that stuff, I've made it known this week that I recognise. I see you. Okay, I see. You've still got to make decisions, and I told them this week. Like, I asked them, "What do you want to be? Do you know yet?" And these are kids who are sort of 15. Like, no. And they kind of looked almost an element of shame that they didn't know.
Yeah.
And I said to them, "Oh, don't worry about it." I said, "Look, you might choose something now." And even some of my young adults actually were the same. One of them's doing an engineering course, but he doesn't know what he wants to do with it. And I said, "Look, I didn't start teaching until I was in my late 20s. That's when I finally found. So it's okay not be sure. Yeah. As long as you're doing something, and I think that you're doing so. If you're doing something, you're doing something.
Yeah.
Better than doing nothing. But let your students know that you understand. The same with the adults. They've got kids. They've got full-time jobs. It's like I applaud you guys. Honestly, I salute you. You guys who have kids and you find time to do extra curricular things like this. I think it's amazing. Like, where do you find the time? To have any life of your own apart from work, your own families. And again, you have to empathize. And I look at what people do as a job. Those lawyers, they don't have such high expectations. The CEO, we've agreed this year that I've given her a book that she's going to work on for homework, but she's going to do that in her own time when she can. She's big enough. I don't need to be telling her. The onus is on her to learn, right? It's not down to me. If she wants to pay me money but then not do the work, but that's on her. But adults are responsible enough, and teens, give them more credit. I think as well. Give them
is very good.
Them. Give them credit. Yeah. Understand. You know what? I'm not going to put pressure on you this week. I know you've got exams, so homework is going to be there. I'm afraid, because you've got to have a little bit, but it's going to be reduced.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's the way it is. And I've already said that to them, and already, there's an element of trust being built up. It's like, hey, do you know what? He's not just throwing more stuff at us. He actually understands that this is tough. And
positive reinforcement instead of always negative reinforcement. If they don't do homework, punished. If they don't do homework, punished. If they speak their own native language, punished. Well, how about if they do their homework, extra reward? Or if they do, try to speak more language, extra reward. I have a reward system. It's kind of like a bank system I've made. It's on the website. It's on Sweet Academy, but I have like little dollar bills, English class dollar bills. And I give it to them. I have this bank reward system that I've come to learn. Like,
and what do they buy things with these dollars?
Yeah, they can buy for a certain tier, a certain price, like a short video, like a music video, up to 7 minutes, or a short video of anything during class.
Oh yeah, I'm going to steal that.
save it in and cash it in. For more money, a longer video. For more money, a Kahoot on anything they want during one of the classes. For another, the final tier is like a full film. So that take like a couple classes.
That's really good. I'm definitely going to use that. Yeah.
Nice.
It's the right time of the year to introduce that as well. Wicked. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've already known it worked. I've already noticed. That's the word.
Yeah.
I've already noticed it working.
No, there's 2 classes in particular that I definitely think that would do well in. I think that would do well in a kids class as well.
Actually. Definitely.
Something else I think is, I don't know if there's any more to say, but there's a lot more I could say, to be honest, but we have to end this at some point.
And we can do this again anytime you want to.
To be honest, some of the things I've taken are from a presentation, training session that I did called the Activity Box, where I just got like loads of activities for reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So I threw in a sample of those things today, but there is a lot of stuff. I actually wondered that maybe I could send you some of these PowerPoints, although to be fair, they need a bit of explanation behind them.
Yeah, we'll do this again. Anytime we want to do this again, that would be amazing.
I would be happy to maybe the next time I would just focus on, maybe divide it into 4 parts and have like a reading, writing, speaking, listening. It just be that, 4 parts. Okay, this is this, this is this, this is this, this is this, and these are the activities for this, activities for this, activities for this, activities for that. Because my activities are, as I say, about the reuse and recycle. Their activities, all of them can be used across the board, with all exam classes and non-exam classes, because that's what I want. I want activities that I can just insert into any given lesson. That's why I know I've got 30 hours.
That overlap for both.
Exactly.
That's the beauty ones. Like the question, like the first one we went on, the tennis. I called it, and you'll see here in a minute, I'm going to share notes that I've been taking throughout the show. If it looked like I've been typing throughout the show, that's because I take notes during this for a little review time, but I called it, you didn't put a name to it. I like to give names. I called it conversation tennis,
I called it question tennis, but I like conversation tennis better. I like conversation better because I elicit, what's this? It's a question. What's this tennis? So what's the name of the There was one more thing I actually did want to say, and I can't remember what it is now. It's completely escaped me. Yeah.
How about I do the review, and if it comes back, it'll probably come back, and then you can bring it up after the review.
All right.
Here we go. Yeah. So, like I said, I like to take notes. So let's take a look at what we've seen. What will be over the last 2 episodes that you've seen. So first, we talked about English books, how they are intentionally designed. Do you think that they're just thrown together? There's a reason for these, and take a look at the teacher's book. Use the teacher's book.
If you're thinking about studying Delta, this is the sort of thing that you're going to be studying. So how the books are designed, why the activities are done in this way, why are they done in this order, what's the point to it all. This is what you learn about when you do Delta.
There's a reason for everything.
Absolutely, yeah.
Something you'll see throughout these show notes, because it's something that's happened throughout the show. Be human with your students. Let them know that you're human. You've been where they are, and you may still be where they are if you're learning something, which, by the way, learn something. Go out and learn something. Learn the local language like I have next. And if not that, learn a sport. Learn something so you can put yourself in your students' shoes. Let them know that the examiners are human too. Find personal ways to incorporate the language learning into their lives. That's so valuable. Then they will take the language to another level. Build their confidence first. And I talk about this as a teacher. There are 3 things that I do. I've mentioned this and actually in last week's episode. The first is motivation. The second is to confidence. And the third is actually build the language. That's the third thing. So first we need to get past the motivation and the confidence. Conversation tennis, that was a beautiful activity that we looked at, or question tennis, as you have it.
No, conversation.
Okay. Countdowns and points work for everybody. They work for adults too. Make sure you realize that. That's something I didn't realize early on in my career. I thought, well, I don't want to patronize the adults by giving them points, but it works. I love getting points. right? Train your students for different cognitive abilities, which is like, of course, the different parts of the exam test, not only their English, but how they use it, how they think, and prepare the students for that when preparing for exams. Encourage students to record themselves. This is valuable. It's painful. It will be painful to do for them to listen to, especially in front of maybe you or another student or something. But if you do it enough, they'll get used to it. And if you show them the value in it, it'll be a lot easier. Be encouraging. Be encouraging, encouraging, encouraging. Start with positive feedback. Like Terry said, there's always something to be praised. There's always something. And start with that and then work from there. That's a good tip. Copying. This is something that I hadn't considered in this, form, in this way, but encourage copying, right? Because it can be a valuable tool, especially when we're talking about making templates and writing something a certain way, especially in writing. And copying can be valuable as long as it's accompanied by learning. Always demonstrate the tasks or give examples first. As teachers, we should always do that. It's so much more motivating for the students when they see you've done something first.
It ties into the personalization.
Absolutely.
Make it personal. Yeah.
Make it personal and that you've done it too.
Exactly.
Right. Build the language with adjectives. We had a great activity for that I'm going to use. Build language with adjectives and adverbs and connectors, right? Work away from correcting the students explicitly, right? Mm-hmm. Give them markers, give them signs, and let them correct their own mistakes, and then praise them for noticing their own mistakes. Beautiful. Give the students power with listening, right? Let them control when they get stuck, when they have to rewind a little bit, when they've missed something, you pause, they have questions. Give them power, empowering students. That's such an underutilized thing in the class, right? Us as teachers, we're not the final end-all be-all authority, right? Empowering people is a great way to lead. Embrace the difficulties of English, right? One of my go-to things with difficulties in English and these exceptions is they're like, why do you do that in English? My go-to answer is job security for me. So the adult students love that.
Yeah. Because yes is another one. Is it? I say, you have an expression in Spanish. I think you say it's because yes. Because yeah, it's not a reason. Because or now the modern, but now we can teach them because reasons. It's the kind of the colloquial, this is what's in the vernacular at the moment, isn't it? That's the expression that people use a lot, because reasons. Because there is there's no real explanation. That's the beauty of English, and I just do that, and it's like, and it, like you said, embrace the difficulties. Tell them, you're not wrong. English is really tough, and strange and odd.
And it's encouraging for the students, right? When they realize it's not them that's not getting it, it's English, and it's rough. Yeah. And use real life English tasks to secretly prepare for the students' exams, right? ESL video, that great resource that I'll link below. Prioritize what you spend time doing. Those charts were beautiful. And if you have to go back and pause that and write that and show that to your students, you could probably find those online too.
No, I made them actually.
Perfect. Oh, even better. So pause the video and copy those and show those to your students. Prioritize what you spend time. This is a review of, prioritize what you spend time on. Again, overlap activities among classes, right? Just because you use something for B1 classes doesn't mean you can't use a similar thing for your C1 classes. You don't have to reinvent things. Kahoot. That's just Kahoot.
That's it. Yeah.
Give the students relatable context to their real lives. That's the best way to build language from the inside in, and learn with your students. Encourage students to be themselves in the speaking exam, right? Be themselves. If they don't want to learn English, that's the correct answer, right? Why are you studying English? Because I have to, and to be honest, I really hate it. That's the correct answer for that student. Always ask the student the magical question, why? Remind the students that they are a team with their partner. They're not trying to outshine their partner. In fact, that will work against them. You're not trying to outdo them and to be better than them. Probably with the exam, as in life, the more you raise up other people, the more you're lifted up, right? And that's the way that it is. Mistakes are okay, and encourage mistakes, to acknowledge mistakes, and that's the way we learn, essentially, right? Encourage nonverbal responses like yeah, and smiles. Be a person in there. Encourage your students to be people in their speaking exams, and examiners are people at the end of the day. And I think I summed it up, didn't I?
I would say so, yeah. That's quite a summary there, Jesse.
Multitasking wasn't my strong suit until I started doing this sort of thing, and then it kind of has to be. But thank you, Ted. Did you think about the thing that you...
I kind of was, but because I'm listening to you, it's kind of escaped me, and I know it's going to be something that's going to pop up later, and I'm going to go, why didn't I? Because it's not in any of my notes, I don't think. No, it's not in any of my notes. So no, sorry, no, not there. So
guess you'll just have to come back.
Yeah, save it for another time. Yeah.
Well, thank you for this. Thank you for this wealth of knowledge. This was incredible. This was amazing. A lot more in depth than even I was anticipating. So thank you. Anything else you want to share or plug or?
No, there's loads of stuff I would love to talk about because you know what us teachers are like. We're terrible. We get together. I can go on and on for days. Partners often get left to the side. When you're when you're with another teacher, when there's a group of you and the partners kind of just sat there because we're banging on about TEFL. So there's always a million things I could say, but no, I'm just going to be preparing my lessons now for the rest of the afternoon. I just wish I could remember that one thing that I feel like is really pertinent, but I can't remember.
As soon as we hang up, it's going to pop in your head.
Oh, of course it will. Yeah, of course it will.
Okay.
But thanks for having me on anyway, Jesse. This has been really fun. I've really enjoyed it, actually. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I'll let you know when it gets posted.
Brilliant. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Did I tell you? That would be good? So thank you, Terry. We spent almost 3 hours recording that on a Sunday afternoon, but time just flew like that. I hope it flew like that for you when you're listening to this and watching it. I hope that you take notes and really take these ideas. Like I said before, I wasn't just saying this. Every guest that I've had so far, I've gotten so much information from, and I've used all of their ideas in my classes, and it works wonderfully. Remember to adapt the lessons for your style, your way of teaching, and your students, but they have just been gold. So thank you to all my guests that come every week. And thank you to you for listening and sticking with me until now. If you're seeing me now, then just say hi below because I will be super impressed and it will just make my day. If you say hi below and I know you've watched it until now, I love you. I love you anyway. Hey guys, I'm sitting here with my daughter, Sophia. She's recording this. And I just want to thank you for watching this video. If you like it and you want to see another video like it, then right next to me, you can click another video for a fun lesson idea or a teaching tip. And don't forget to subscribe and click the bell so you get new videos every week.